I am holding three children who should not be breathing. Their skin is cold but not dead. Their eyes are open but they do not see me. When I found them in the catacombs beneath the hearth, they were wrapped in silk that smelled like incense and old blood. They have been here for weeks, maybe longer. He told me the lower chambers were for storage. I believed him because I wanted the key he offered to mean trust. I wore it around my neck like a promise. But keys are not gifts, they are permissions. And I gave him mine the moment I smiled and said thank you. The oldest girl is trying to speak. Her mouth moves, but no sound comes. She does not remember her name. None of them do. I think I used to know why, but there are weeks missing from my memory, and when I touch the back of my neck, the skin is tender. I have lived in this castle for 3 years. I tend the hearth in the great hall, keep the fires burning through the night, and make sure the floors stay clean. It is not much, but it is mine, or it was. Before this, I had nothing. The convent where I was raised taught me that obedience was the highest form of love. When he found me on the road between villages, half frozen and alone, he did not ask questions. He simply brought me here, gave me work, gave me a room with a window that faced the forest. He said I was different from the others. I believed him because I needed to. The other servants do not meet my eyes anymore. Some of them have been here longer than I have, but they cannot tell me for how long. When I ask about the woman who tended the hearth before me, they look confused. One of them said there was no one before me. Another said there were many. I stopped asking. He calls me to his chambers twice a week. We drink wine. He asks me questions about my day, my thoughts, small things that make me feel seen. Afterward, I wake in my own bed with hours I cannot account for. I tell myself I simply drank too much, that I fell asleep in his presence and he carried me back. But I have started finding stains on my collars, small marks at the base of my neck that fade by morning. The children in the catacombs do not have that luxury. Their wounds do not fade. They are caught halfway between what they were and what he is making them become. I do not know how long they have left. Days, maybe, perhaps less. If I try to take them, he will know. If I do nothing, I will become the kind of person who can sleep through a child's suffering. I think that is the test. I think I have been failing it on purpose. I want to be clear about something before I go any further. I am not a victim. I chose to stay. Every morning for 3 years, I woke up in a room with a door that was never locked. I could have walked through the gates at any time. The forest was right there. The villages beyond were only a day's travel on foot. I stayed because I wanted to. That is what I told myself, at least. And maybe it was true at first. The convent taught me that safety was something you earned through usefulness. The nuns fed me, clothed me, gave me a mattress in a cold dormitory, and in exchange, I scrubbed floors until my knuckles bled. I was good at that, good at making myself small and necessary. When he offered me this position, I did not ask why he chose me. I did not ask what happened to the woman before me. I simply said yes, because that is what I had been trained to do. Say yes, be grateful. Do not question kindness. But I am not stupid. I know what the stains on my collars mean. I know why there are mornings when I wake with a headache so heavy I can barely stand, or why certain rooms make my chest tighten even though I cannot remember what happened in them. I know why the servants look at me the way they do, like I am already gone. I tell myself I stay because I have nowhere else to go. That is easier than admitting the truth. The truth is that it makes me feel chosen, not loved. I am not naive enough to call it that, but chosen, seen. He remembers everything I say. He notices when I braid my hair differently or when I am tired. He asks questions that make me believe my thoughts matter. And when you have spent your entire life being interchangeable, another mouth to feed, another pair of hands being chosen, feels like proof that you exist. I think that is why I have been breaking things, small things. A cup, a candle that falls and scorches the floor. Tasks I forget or do poorly, just to see if he notices, just to see if there is a limit to his patience. I think part of me has been waiting for him to send me away. And part of me has been terrified that he will not. I found the key to the catacombs 3 weeks ago. He left it on the table in his chambers next to an empty wine glass and a folded piece of parchment with my name written across it. The letter said he trusted me, that the castle had always been mine to explore, but some rooms required an invitation. He said he was giving me one. I should have left it there, but I had been forgetting too much, losing entire days, waking up with dirt under my fingernails, and no memory of going outside. I told myself that if I could just see what was behind the locked doors, I would understand. I would know why I stayed. I would prove to myself that there was a reason. The catacombs are older than the rest of the castle. The stone is darker, rougher. The air smells like wet earth and something else, something sweet and wrong, like food left too long in the sun. I brought a candle, but the flame kept shrinking, as if the air itself was swallowing the light. I found them in the third chamber. Three children, laid out on stone pallets covered in silk. Their skin was pale, almost grey, but their chests moved barely. Their eyes were open but unfocused, staring at the ceiling as if they were watching something I could not see. The oldest could not have been more than 8. Her lips were cracked and dry, but when I leaned closer, I saw her mouth moving, forming words with no sound. I touched her hand. It was cold, but not stiff. Her fingers twitched slightly, like she was trying to hold on but had forgotten how. That was when I noticed the marks, small punctures at the neck, the wrist, the inside of the elbow. Some were scarred over, others looked fresh. The wounds were precise, deliberate, not violent, almost careful. I should have run. Instead, I picked up the smallest child, a boy, no older than 5, and carried him toward the stairs. I do not know what I thought I would do. Bring him to the hearth, maybe. Warm him, feed him, something. But the moment I stepped past the threshold of the chamber, he began to scream. Not out loud. There was no sound. But his body convulsed in my arms, his back arching, his mouth stretched open in a silent cry. I stumbled and nearly dropped him. When I set him back on the pallet, he went still again, eyes open, breathing slow. I tried twice more. Each time, the same thing happened. They could not leave. I do not know how long I stood there, staring at them. Long enough for the candle to burn low, long enough for my hands to stop shaking. When I finally climbed back up the stairs, he was waiting at the top. He did not look angry. He looked pleased. He asked me if I understood now, if I saw what he had been protecting me from. I said yes. I lied. I began testing the edges the next day. First, I tried to leave. Not permanently, just to the village. I told myself I needed supplies, candles, linen, something ordinary. But when I reached the gate, I stopped. My hand was on the iron latch. The forest was 15 steps away. I could not lift it. Not because it was locked. It was not. Not because he was watching. It was not. I simply stood there, my fingers curled around cold metal, and I could not make myself pull. I told myself it was fear, that I was being a coward, but it felt like something else, like the decision had already been made for me, and my body was simply catching up. I went back inside. The second thing I tried was asking the servants what they remembered. I found the woman who works in the kitchen. Her name is Martha. I think, though she has told me 3 different names over the past year. I asked her how long she had been here. She looked at me like I had asked her to solve a problem with no answer. I've always been here, she said. I pressed. I asked if she remembered the woman who tended the hearth before me. She frowned, shook her head. Then she paused and said, "There was a girl once, dark hair. She kept forgetting to stoke the fire." I asked what happened to her. Martha's face went blank. "I don't know," she said. "I think she left," but she did not sound certain. And when I asked her when, she could not answer. Later, I found a scarf in the back of my wardrobe. It was not mine. It was blue wool, fraying at the edges, with a small embroidered initial I did not recognize. I brought it to Martha and asked if she knew who it belonged to. She looked at it for a long time. Then she said, "That's yours." It was not. The third thing I tried was the chapel. The castle has a small stone chapel in the east wing. I had been inside once when I first arrived, but I had not been back since. I am not particularly devout, but I thought if nothing else it might feel safer, familiar. The door was unlocked. The pews were empty. Dust covered the altar, and the candles had long since burned down to stumps. But the air felt different, cooler, quieter. I knelt at the front and tried to pray. I am not sure what I was asking for. Clarity, maybe. Strength. Some sign that I had not already lost myself. When I stood to leave, I noticed the communion wine on the altar. A small clay pitcher, sealed with wax. It had probably been there for years, forgotten. I broke the seal and poured a cup. It smelled sour, but not spoiled. I drank it anyway, not because I wanted to, because I needed to do something that felt like a choice. That night, he came to my room. He did not knock. He simply appeared in the doorway, holding a glass of wine. He asked if I was feeling well, if I had rested, if I needed anything. I told him I was fine. He smiled and crossed the room. He set the glass on the table beside my bed and sat down in the chair by the window. He did not touch me. He simply watched. He asked if I had enjoyed my walk to the gate. I did not answer. He asked if I had been to the chapel. I said yes. He tilted his head, curious. "And did you find what you were looking for?" I told him I did not know what I was looking for. He nodded, as if that were the correct answer. Then he stood and moved toward the door. Before he left, he paused. "You drank the wine," he said. It was not a question. I said nothing. He smiled again, softer this time. Good. After he left, I locked the door. Not that it mattered. I knew he could enter whenever he wished, but I locked it anyway, because it felt like the only thing I still controlled. I poured the wine he had brought into the chamber pot. Then I lay in bed and tried to remember the last time I had chosen something without his permission. I could not. The next morning, I woke with a sharp pain behind my eyes and the taste of iron in my mouth. My neck was unmarked. My collar was clean. But when I looked in the mirror, I did not recognize the expression on my face. I looked calm. I looked like I was waiting for something. I found the others by accident. I was searching the upper chambers for blankets, something warm to wrap the children in, though I still did not know what I planned to do with them. The linen closet was at the end of a corridor I had been told was unused. The door was heavier than I expected. Inside, the shelves were mostly empty, except for a wooden chest pushed against the back wall. It was not locked. The lid lifted easily. Inside were clothes, women's clothes, folded neatly, sorted by color and type, wool skirts, linen blouses, a blue scarf with fraying edges. Beneath the clothes, I found letters. They were written in different hands, different inks, but they were all addressed to the same place, to him. Some were formal, others were intimate. One was signed with a name I had heard Martha say once, weeks ago, when she was confused about who I was. At the bottom of the chest, I found a journal. The handwriting was careful, even the entries were dated. The first one was from 4 years ago. It started the same way mine would have if I had kept one. He found me on the road. He offered me work, a room, safety. I read further. She wrote about tending the hearth, about evenings in his chambers, about how kind he was, how attentive, how he made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. She wrote about forgetting things, losing time, waking up tired. And then she wrote about the children. She found them in the catacombs, three of them. She tried to save them. She carried one up the stairs, and when it began to convulse in her arms, she put it back. She wrote that he was waiting at the top, that he asked if she understood now. She said yes. The next entry was 2 weeks later. She wrote that she had started testing him, breaking things, small acts of defiance. She wanted to see if there was a limit to his patience. She wanted to see if he would send her away. He did not. The final entry was short. I think he is waiting to see what I will do. I think this has all been a test. I do not know if I am passing or failing. There was no entry after that. I closed the journal and sat on the floor of the linen closet for a long time. I thought about the scarf Martha had insisted was mine. I thought about the servants who could not remember how long they had been here. I thought about the woman in the journal who had done exactly what I was doing, questioned, resisted, tried to leave, and then vanished so completely that even her name had been erased. I thought about the children, and I realized they were not his first experiment. The children were the test. He had done this before. Many times, perhaps, he found women, gave them a home, fed on them until they forgot themselves. And then he introduced them to the children, the ones he had been keeping half alive in the catacombs, trapped in a transformation he could control. Some women fled, some tried to save them, some stayed silent. The ones who stayed silent were kept. The ones who acted were erased. And I had already chosen. I had seen the children. I had tried to carry one out. I had failed. And instead of running, instead of screaming, instead of doing anything that mattered, I had gone back to my room and pretended it was not happening. I had passed his test. That was why he looked pleased. I was not different. I was exactly like the others. And if I did nothing, I would stay here until I forgot my own name. I stopped sleeping after I found the chest. Not because I was afraid, because I needed to remember. If I slept, I might wake up having lost another day, another week. I might forget what I had read. I might forget the woman who came before me and the one before her. I might forget that I was repeating their story. So I stayed awake. I sat by the hearth and fed the fire and watched the flames until my eyes burned. When exhaustion pulled at me, I walked the corridors. I recited things to myself, my name, my age, the name of the village where I was born, small facts I could check against my memory later. But even that began to fail. On the third night, I found myself standing in the chapel with no memory of walking there. The communion wine was open. The cup was in my hand, half empty. I did not remember drinking it. I poured the rest into a flask and hid it in my room. I do not know why. It felt important, like it was the only thing in the castle that was mine. The children were getting worse. I went back to the catacombs every day. I told myself I was checking on them, that I was trying to help, but I think I just needed to see proof that they were still real. that I had not imagined them. The oldest girl had stopped moving her mouth. Her eyes were glassy now, fixed on nothing. The boy's breathing had slowed. I could count 10 seconds between each breath. I tried to feed them. I brought water, broth, bread softened in milk, but when I held the cup to their lips, they did not swallow. The liquid just pooled in their mouths and spilled down their chins. They were starving, but not for food. I understood that now. I understood what he had done. He had started the transformation but refused to finish it. They were suspended too far, gone to be human, not far enough to survive as he did. And the only thing that would complete the change was something I could not give them, or would not. I thought about running again. I made it as far as the courtyard this time. I stood in the cold, staring at the gates. The forest beyond was dark and silent. No lights from the village, no smoke from chimneys, just trees. I could feel him watching from the window above. I turned around and went back inside. That night, he came to my room earlier than usual. He brought wine, as always. He sat in the chair by the window, as always, but this time he did not ask me questions. He simply looked at me, his expression calm and patient, like he was waiting for me to speak first. I asked him what would happen to the children if I did nothing. He considered this. Then he said, they will fade. It will take time, but they will stop breathing eventually. It will be painless. I asked if there was another way. He smiled, not unkindly. There is always another way, Elisabetta, but it requires a choice. I did not ask what choice. I already knew. He stood and crossed the room. He set the wine on the table beside me and placed something next to it, a small knife. The blade was clean, polished. It caught the firelight. You are kind, he said, kinder than the others. That is why I chose you. He left without waiting for a response. I stared at the knife for a long time. I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to choose him, to prove that I valued his approval more than their lives. Or he wanted me to try to save them and fail so he could watch me break. Either way, he won. I picked up the knife. I did not go to the catacombs. Not yet. Instead, I went back to the linen closet and opened the chest. I pulled out the journal and read it again, cover to cover, searching for something I had missed. Some clue, some way the woman before me had escaped. There was nothing. But at the very back of the chest, beneath the letters and clothes, I found something else. A small wooden box. Inside was a ring, tarnished silver, with an inscription I could not read, and beneath the ring, a lock of dark hair tied with thread. I held it up to the firelight. It was the same color as mine. I closed the box and put everything back exactly as I had found it. Then I returned to my room, locked the door, and sat on the floor with the knife in my lap. I thought about the children. I thought about the women who had come before me. I thought about Martha, who could not remember her own name. And I realized something. He did not want me to save them. He did not want me to let them die either. He wanted me to choose him, to ask for his help, to admit that I could not do this alone. That was the test. Not mercy, not courage, dependence. I looked at the knife in my hands. I thought about the communion wine hidden in my wardrobe, and I made a decision, not the one he expected, not the one I would have made 3 weeks ago. I stood, unlocked the door, and walked to his chambers. He was waiting. I did not say anything. I simply held out my wrist. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he took my hand gently and pressed his lips to the inside of my wrist, not biting, just holding. Are you certain? He asked. I nodded. He smiled, and I felt the puncture sharp, brief, painless. I stayed conscious. I do not know if that was his doing or mine, but I watched as he drank. I watched as the room tilted slightly, I watched as he finally pulled away and pressed a cloth to the wound. You will feel tired, he said. Rest now. I did not rest. I went back to my room, pulled out the flask of communion wine, and drank half of it in one swallow. Then I went to the catacombs. The children were still breathing when I reached them. Barely. I set the knife on the stone pallet beside the oldest girl. My wrist was still bleeding, slow and steady, soaking through the cloth he had wrapped around it. I could feel the lightness in my head. The wine was working against whatever he had taken from me. I did not have much time. I knelt beside the boy first. He was the smallest, the one I had tried to carry out before. I did not know if this would work. I did not know if it would make things better or worse. But I knew that leaving them like this, half alive, suspended, waiting for a mercy that would never come, was not a choice I could live with. I pressed my bleeding wrist to his mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his lips moved, a reflex, maybe, or instinct. His mouth closed around the wound, and I felt the pull, gentle at first, then stronger. I let him drink. Not long, just enough. When I pulled away, his eyes were clearer. His chest rose and fell with more certainty. He still did not speak, but he looked at me, really looked. I moved to the girl next, then the youngest. My vision was blurring by the time I finished. My hands were shaking, but all three of them were breathing easier now. Their skin had lost some of its grey pallor. I did not know what I had just done to them. I did not know if I had saved them or condemned them to something worse. But I knew they could not stay here. I picked up the boy and carried him toward the stairs. This time, he did not convulse. He stayed limp in my arms, his head resting against my shoulder. I climbed slowly, one step at a time, bracing myself against the wall. When I reached the top, it was not waiting. The corridor was empty. I carried the boy to the chapel. It was the only place I could think of, the only room that felt like it did not belong to him. I laid the boy on the floor near the altar, then went back for the others. It took 3 trips. By the time I brought the oldest girl up, I could barely stand. My legs were trembling. My wrist had stopped bleeding, but the wound looked wrong, darker around the edges, like it was trying to close and failing. I sat on the floor of the chapel with the 3 children around me and waited. I did not have to wait long. He appeared in the doorway, not angry, not surprised, just watching. You gave them your blood, he said. It was not a question. I nodded. He stepped into the chapel slowly, his gaze moving over the children. You know what that means? I did. Blood taking created forgetting. Blood giving created a bond. I had tied myself to them and them to me. He crossed the room and knelt in front of me. He looked at my wrist, at the wound that would not close properly. Then he looked at my face. You drank the consecrated wine, he said. I nodded again. He smiled. Not cruel, almost fond, clever. He reached out and touched the side of my face, gently, the way you might touch something fragile. You are not strong enough to finish this, he said. They will need more than what you gave them, and you cannot give it. I knew. He tilted his head, studying me. So what do you want, Elizabetha? Do you want me to save them? I can. I can finish what you started. They will live. They will be whole. But they will be mine. I looked at the children. Their eyes were open now, all 3 of them, watching. Or, he continued, you take them into the sun. End it quickly, painlessly. No more waiting. No more suffering. He stood and stepped back, giving me space. Choose, he said. I looked at the boy, at the girls, at their small, fragile bodies that had been used and broken and kept alive for a game I still did not fully understand. I thought about the women in the chest, the ones who had tried to save them, the ones who had failed. I thought about what it would mean to let him finish this, to give him what he wanted, to prove that I needed him. And I thought about what it would mean to carry them outside, to hold them while the light took them, to be the one who ended it. Both options were unbearable, but one of them was mine. I stood, slow and unsteady, and gathered the boy into my arms. Then I walked toward the door. It did not stop me. I carried them out one at a time. The courtyard was still dark, but the sky was beginning to pale at the edges. Dawn was close. I laid them on the cold stone and sat beside them. The oldest girl reached for my hand. Her fingers were stronger now, warmer. I held on and I waited for the sun. The sun did not kill them. I do not know why. Maybe I gave them too much. Maybe the consecrated wine changed something. Or maybe he planned for this all along. The bond. I watched their skin blister and crack in the light. I heard them cry soft, broken sounds that were not quite human. But they did not turn to ash. They did not disappear. When the sun was fully up, they were still breathing. It came out and carried them back inside, one by one, gently, like they were precious. He did not look at me. I stayed in the courtyard until the cold sank into my bones. Then I went back to my room, locked the door, and waited. He did not come that night, or the night after. On the third day, I returned to the catacombs. The children were gone. The stone pallets were empty. The silk was folded neatly, as if they had never been there at all. I searched the castle. Every room, every corridor. I found nothing. Martha told me there were never any children. She looked at me like I had asked her something strange and sad. I do not know if it made her forget or if she was telling the truth. I tend the hearth still. I keep the fires burning. I fold the linens and sweep the floors. My room is the same. My window still faces the forest. But I do not try to leave anymore. He watches me sometimes from doorways or across the hall. He does not speak to me. He does not call me to his chambers. He does not feed. He simply watches. I think he is waiting to see what I will do next. If I will try again, if I will break, if I will forget. I will not forget. I have started writing things down, not in a journal. You would find that. Instead, I carve small marks into the underside of the table in my room. Tallies, names, dates, reminders that I was here, that I chose something. Even if I do not know whether it was the right thing. I do not know if the children are alive. I do not know if they suffered more because of me or less, but I know I am still here. And I know he has not erased me yet. I think that fascinates him. I think I have become his favorite experiment. I have been thinking about what it means to choose someone over yourself. Not out of love necessarily, but out of need, out of the terror of being alone, or forgotten, or invisible again. I wonder how many of us stay in places that hollow us out simply because leaving would mean admitting we were never as chosen as we thought. If this story stayed with you, if it unsettled something or made you think about the prisons we build for ourselves, I would be glad to know. You can leave a thought in the comments or just sit with it for a while. There are more stories like this, quieter horrors, the kind that live in hesitation and complicity, and the moment you realize you have been failing a test you did not know you were taking. If you want to hear them, I will be here. Thank you for listening.